Welcome to Tech Talk Tuesday, actually on a Friday today. I'm your host, Rick Smith. This podcast is where we discuss tips, ideas, and strategies to help you run your IT business. Whether you're a one-person shop or a larger company with multiple employees, this is the place for you. My co-host, Paco LeBron, who you're used to seeing, is out today, so I'll be riding solo. Our guest today is Charles Henson of Nashville Computer in Brentwood, Tennessee. Charles, how you doing today?
Doing great. How are you doing, Rick?
I'm doing good. Welcome to the show. Before we get started with Charles, we just have to run through a little bit of housekeeping. As you all know, TechCon Unplugged is back officially September 16th to the 18th in Chicago at the Hilton Rosemont Chicago O'Hare Airport. TechCon Unplugged is our annual gathering with business owners, technicians, and those aspiring to be. You'll enjoy helpful presentations from our peers, interactions with vendors, breakout sessions to dive deeper into special interests, and a chance to rub elbows and enjoy that one-on-one conversation. The goal of TechCon Unplugged is to help us all get real takeaways to bring back to our business. Tickets are on sale at $299, but right now there's an early bird special of $199 until April 4th. You can get your tickets now at TechCon Unplugged, and I hope to see you all there. All right, now that we're through that, let's get to Charles here. Charles, welcome. For those who don't know you, tell us a little bit about yourself and your business.
Yeah, sure. So Charles Henson, Nashville Computer, based out of Nashville. We're actually in Brentwood. Business was started back in 1988 by my late business partner and longtime mentor, employer, if you were. He started in 1988 with a business partner of his own that was a CPA, and they started selling Mass 90 software. And what they found was they started this company called Information Computer at the time, and they went to sell Mass 90, but people in 88 didn't have computers, and they quickly started acquiring computers and reselling them. And that's when they shortened the name to Info Computer and started selling computers, because back then, if you remember, that was the start of the 8088s and, this back in the day of the SIPs and the MFM hard drives. And in 91, I graduated from ITT Tech and started working there part-time. Worked part-time probably about 3 or 4 months, and then went full-time. And so through the years, I remained working there along, I think it was somewhere around 2003, 2004. I was made the managing partner and became part ownership of the business. I spent actually more time with Carrie Couch, my old business partner, than I actually spent growing up with my parents. So I worked for him for 29 years. He taught me everything about the business, customer service, how to take care of people, the culture of the business itself, how to make sure your employees are taken care of. And, he really set that solid foundation for me to carry on his legacy. So, when you think about a company starting out as a software company and ending up being a full-on managed services focused on security, we've really seen the whole cycle of IT come through.
Wow, that's cool. So you grew up in the business and now end up running the business.
Yeah,
that's great. Now, how big of an MSP are you guys? How many employees?
I just did an acquisition up in Michigan. I just took over Larry the Computer Guy, and that's my first acquisition. Did that in Q4. And that it takes us up to 24 employees. So wow. We've gone from, me being the one and only part-time tech up to 24 people there now.
Wow. That's great. Now I understand now you're an author of a book now, the MSSP Playbook.
I am. Yeah. It's the MSSP Playbook was written, and is actually, Rick, is kind of funny. ID agent said, "Hey, can you come and speak at one of our events?" And I said, "Yeah." And so I spoke at one of their road shows, and then they're like, "Hey, we need something to give away." And in that time period, I was working on locking down Nashville Computer. And so I was like, well, what if you did like an ebook, and we just put in there like things that you can lock down, the things that you need to lock down for your MSP. And so as we in Nashville Computer, my engineers and I, we strategized and worked together saying, what do we need to lock down? Put 2FA on everything, make sure no passwords are alike, putting in the entire security stack, including the Palo Alto firewall in our own house, with data loss protection in place, making sure that was working and functioning, putting a SIM in place, right? Like literally locking down our own house and making sure that no two passwords were alike on any two devices, much less across client sites, right? And so what we did is, as the engineers went through things, we just started writing stuff down, like, let's add this, let's add this. Oh yeah, we forgot about this, our DNS host, right? Where's our DNS hosted? Where's the website hosted? What about our QuickBooks? How are we going to lock all these different things down? And essentially, I created a small ebook for ID Agent to distribute. And they asked me to come back and do some more of their engagements. And I was going to be, we had booked a 13 city roadshow to go around and talk. And I thought, well, you know what? Instead of just having an ebook, let me turn this thing into a full-on book. And I share stories of like when the FBI showed up at one of my clients' sites, right? And why did they show up? Well, there was a key fob system that got installed, and that key fob system was compromised. They did a cross-site script, took over a Linux web host server, and they started farming out ransomware from my client under my watch. And because we didn't have a SIM, we didn't have the proper firewall in there, things, the IT guy had actually installed the key fob system, which we didn't know a new device had been added to the network. And we started looking at that going, wow, there's things that we really need to do a better job of and have better, insights into these networks, right? Not just building out the infrastructure and naming conventions, stuff like that. It's really knowing what is happening inside that network. And so as I continued to compile stuff and put it together, I created the playbook. And it's really for MSPs, not to necessarily become an MSSP, but it's really to be security focused. And so one of the things that I talk about is, when you get on a plane and you're flying somewhere, they say, hey, if oxygen pressure drops, put your mask on first and then assist your child, right? Because they know that you could black out and then you both could potentially end up dying, right? That's the purpose of that. And so I really took that approach to this is, Rick, you got to lock down your MSP. You got to protect your own house. And then once you have your house protected, now you can take all the tools that you're currently using. You're eating your own dog food. Let's take that to the clients and upsell them on the value of what you're bringing to the table. And it really talks about like the threat landscape, how it's changed. A lot of MSPs are out there and they're like, well, my clients are already under agreement. I can't sell them anything else. And I'll tell you that, we could talk about that if you want to, because that's something that we did is we looked at every one of our clients and we said, well, there's a SIM, there's Palo Alto firewalls, there's better devices, better tools today that we have available to us, right, as MSPs, than we did when we originally sold that managed agreement. And so we're all about going and educating the client and letting them decide if they want to purchase those additional add-ons.
Right. I think it's a great point you brought up too, is as MSPs, we got to make sure our own house is clean and clear before we can apply it anywhere else. And I think this is one of those things that we probably necessarily don't think about sometimes, is we focus so much on the customer and getting their stuff right, and we leave our back door open sometimes, or just think, sometimes we end up thinking like the customer. It's not going to happen to me, so it's not a big deal. But I think it's a great point that we definitely have to do that. And now you said as far as, like you said, you mentioned the having a SOC. Do you use a SOC now, and you recommended all your clients use a SOC?
Yes, we outsource that. See, I'm not going to bring those, 6-figure guys in and, 24 hours around the clock. Right. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, even though I am a little bit more of a mature MSP, I'm still not at that point where we can afford to bring those levels of engineers in and that expertise. And so
Right.
there's certain things that you really have to look at is, how do I outsource this? Who should I partner with? What's the right vendor? And I talk about that a little bit in the book. I actually interviewed a couple of MSSPs and said, what is it that MSPs need to be looking at when they hire somebody like you? Right. And it's that 24/7, it's that alerting. Where's the handoff? Can they stop things for you as they see it? And then, what level of involvement is needed to be there. MSPs can obviously, hire the right people and do the right things, and they can become a managed security service provider, but they won't necessarily have to do that. So this kind of helps you get everything that you need. It's the full checklist, like I said. And then you can decide, like interviewing SOCs, interviewing somebody that's going to be on your security side of the house, doing that for you and alongside you. So a strategic partner, if you will.
Right. Now, as a growing MSP, I know with me personally, it was some challenges on when I set up a quote unquote tech stack as to, what should be included, what not. One of the things I'm learning now is that I have to have a baseline basic that everyone is either on or, I can't do business with them. You guys implement something like that? You have a basic baseline?
Yeah, what's funny is the book is what really made us start focusing on that, because you think about it, we've been in business since '88. We had a lot of legacy old break fix clients that we had never converted over. They'd been paying us, for years just to come out and fix things. They bought antivirus once a year. They didn't have the best in breed firewall, anything like that. So there were some opportunities there for us to move the last struggling clients up into a security stack or a minimum stack, if you will. And so we literally just went to every single, we said, okay, line in the sand. I think it was July 2019. We said, line in the sand. Everybody has to be off of this old, definition-based antivirus. They have to be on next gen, advanced endpoint protection, advanced threat protection, right? So we wanted to have a couple of different things in there. They could go with like a Sophos firewall. They could go with like Huntress, and maybe like you could roll out like Deep Instinct or something like that, but no more of the older legacy apps. And so we said, if you don't meet this baseline, we essentially can't do work for you anymore. Because when you look at the errors and omissions insurance, that's pretty easy to get, right? Like we make an error, they can't really, ask you how technical are your people, right? Are they dumb? Are they stupid? Are they going to make mistakes? You can't ask those questions. But when it comes to security and getting cybercrime insurance, underwriting had a certain level of things that they wanted us to have in place. And so we had to go to every client, and out of the legacy clients, we ended up losing 4 clients that did not want to pay that monthly fee for the endpoint protection. And, at the end of the day, I've minimized my risk by getting rid of those people, because those are the ones that would have had ransomware. They would have said, hey, my backups aren't working. You couldn't restore, my business was down, and now we're suing you because you didn't tell me I needed that. It'd be their word against mine.
Right. And that's usually the way it happens. It comes to the ones you tried to get going, and they come back at you. So, do you focus on a specific niche, a specific target market, or you kind of work with all kinds of businesses?
Yeah, we work with all kinds of businesses. What I will say is that our marketing is to a niche. So if we're marketing to CPA firms, then the testimonials are going to be from CPA firms. It's going to say, hey, is your firm protected, right? Like it speaks to that. If it's a doctor's office or a law office, we say, is your practice protected, right? And then the testimonials are either doctors, other doctors, or attorneys or whatever. If we're go into manufacturing, we talk about them, their company, and then we have testimonials based on that. So what I don't do is I don't send CPAs a marketing letter talking about their organization and then have a bunch of church testimonials in there, because you're not speaking to that person. It's like you're disjointed, right? So we don't have that niche of going in and just saying we're just going to focus on dentists or attorneys or CPAs. We'll do IT work for pretty much anybody, including like even in the music industry, artists and labels and things like that. So most all companies have that network infrastructure, right? Like it's pretty much all the same. It's the line of business applications that are different and or unique. And so to me, the thing is always get your clear message when you're doing your marketing out to these people, but there's no sense of locking yourself into one vertical. Right. I do a lot of coaching through of MSPs through Robin Robbins. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I saw when COVID hit, and if you were only doing school systems or if you were only doing dentists, right? What happened? All the dentists closed. Right. The schools went to work from home, right? Like there's certain things like you kind of pigeonhole yourself, if you will. And that's not what you want to do in business, right? And so to me, personally, we continue to just do different marketing and branding around the different people that we go after.
Right. Makes sense. And it sounds like you, with the marketing, I know you talk about with Robin, but it's great that it's you tailor it all to the individual, to the company, or not, the mm-hmm. industry. So you tailor, and I think, one of the things is, as a smaller MSP, and a lot of us struggle with, is that time that we all say we want to market, but it gets hard. You have so many other things on your plate. But through my experiences lately, I've learned that it's probably the most important thing, and what is going to, essentially help my business grow. And so now, taking in these lessons, we have to figure out. I know you're a little larger, so you may have some, people that you can designate to do those things. But for smaller MSPs, mm-hmm. you have any recommendations or suggestions on how they can necessarily make the time, find the time, or maybe some tricks to get it in?
Absolutely. So, even if you are, let me answer that with a different mindset for just a moment. So if you're a smaller MSP, you're getting started, one man band, single person, you're trying to get out there. The thing that I'm going to encourage you to do is make sure that you're getting the right gross profit margin. Shoot for 70%, land somewhere around 65. That's fine. But you have to have your pricing in place, right? Look at your cost and then go out there and look at that. Cash flow management is key, right? You have to make sure that you're billing your clients consistently. You don't want to bill them 6 months later for something. You really have to get that money flowing in, and with the right margins, right? So I coach people, and one of the first things I do is say, what's your price per endpoint, per user? I don't care how you do it, per server, but you should be landing over $100 per endpoint and closer to $300 per server, right? Mm-hmm. So to get that set right in your business, then you can afford to hire that part-time marketing person. And what we did, Rick, is we hired she was a single mom. She wanted to be able to drop her daughter off at school in the morning, make her breakfast, spend time with her, drop her off at school, not before care. She wanted to be able to go to the, Halloween parties and the special events and science projects and all that. And she wants to pick her up every single day in the car rider line, right? So she has limited hours. But from a marketing position, you really don't care if they're working at night, on the weekends, part-time, whatever. If you can't hire that person yet, I would still recommend that you do the marketing. And right. If that's mailing out, 25 to 30 letters per week, that's easy to do. You could print out, a one-page letter, a marketing letter, You could go out there. I mean, the PPP list is available for you to download, right? Of every company in your area, they got the PPP funding. That it's a government website. It's got the freaking Excel document in there. Just go download it. And yes, you'll have to clean that list because you need to get their addresses, but that's easy enough to do. You just Google them, put it in, and you spend just a little bit of time on this each day, or you set aside an hour each week, right? But you send out 25 letters and you keep doing that consistently, and you're going to start getting people to either, call you back, say, hey, yeah, come out here and talk to me. But the key there also is you need to make those follow-up calls. Right. And I know, guys, it's people hate making those calls, but it's so much easier to call and say, hey, Rick, this is Charles with Nashville Computer. I sent you a letter last week. Just wanted to make sure you got it. Did you see it? So it's so much easier than saying, hey, Rick, I'm Charles with Nashville Computer. Who do you use for IT services? Right now, it kind of softens the blow because you're calling to ask, did you get my letter? It talked about this offer. It talked about IT services from our company. And so it makes the conversation a little bit easier. Are you going to get some no's? Yeah. Are you going to get people that never answer the phone? Absolutely. But, you think about these different vendors that call us every week, right? I know you guys are getting the same voicemails I'm getting. It's probably the exact same voicemails.
Exactly.
But they make those follow-up calls for a reason, because then when I have that need, then I know that, oh, you know what? I need a SIM. I need to go look at this product. I need, I'm thinking about changing advanced endpoint protection. I can go back and know that vendor called me, and then I know who to call, because that's the whole key with marketing your MSP is you have to get in front of these people and be top of mind, right? So if I say, hey, Rick, I've got an F-150 truck. You want to buy it?
I don't know about that.
Exactly. But if you walk outside today and the trash truck backed into your car, right, or your truck, and you're like, you know what? Let me call Charles and see what kind of truck he had, because now I need a truck. So you got to be marketing so that when those people can't get a hold of their current IT guy, or if they're tired of, getting overbilled by them, or whatever their frustration is, right? You want to be the guy that they think about, or the gal that they're thinking about, that, you know what, I need to call this IT company and just see what do they offer that, I'm not getting today. And that's why you need to always be out there marketing. Why do you think Chevy and Ford run their ads all the time? It's not going to hit, there's 90% of the people that those ads are being seen by aren't in the marketplace to buy a car or truck.
Right.
But that other 10%, that's what they're going for. And that's what we need to do as MSPs, is continue to market to our prospects in our city, building brand awareness, and just getting our name out in front of them.
Right. I think that's a great point. And I think it's something we all can learn from, because like I said, it becomes one of those tasks that we just put on the list and we don't get to until we actually realize we have to. And then you say, I should have done this 8 months ago, or 5 years ago, wherever you are in your journey. And I love the idea of, like you said, finding someone who may not be able to work full time for you, but can do it part time, help you out, and again, it takes something off your plate. It gets you, it gets the, like you say, the 25 letters or whatever you send out. It gets that out, and it gives you then the opportunity to reach out and say, hey, I loved it. Did you get my letter? As opposed to, hey, do you need tech service, or who's your guy? We can do better. At least you're absolutely right about that. And, as techs, we are starting to, realize more and more how important it is. And I'll tell you, the other thing that really stood out to me, just as you talk about the vendors calling, there's a vendor that calls me consistently. He'll call and I'll say, hey, I can't talk now. Give me a month. And just last week, I ran into an issue with another vendor, and I said, maybe I need to start researching. Now, this guy, because his voice is, because I've talked to him so much, his voice is in my head. I couldn't remember his name. But then he called yesterday, which is hilarious. And I spoke to him this morning before you and I got on. And I was like, hey, and he's been consistent. And, that helps. And I'm thinking we a lot of times don't think like our customers,
Yep.
like our partners we do business with. We don't think like them. They're running a business just like we are, and they have needs, and our goal is to fulfill those needs. But I do appreciate. I think that's some great advice that a lot of us can use.
Yep.
Yeah. And so I guess I'll ask you this. Now you've been in business for a long time, and when we start out, now I understand your growth in the business was a little different, but still, as the person in charge, you've done some things that you may say, "Hey, I wish I wouldn't have done that," or "I could have done that better." Is there one thing you say and you did that you wish you could change or you would change now?
Yeah, that's funny, right? Because as you start to grow your MSP, one of the things you do is you change your hats, right? So you stop being that technician and you start becoming the business owner where you're starting to run the thing, and you're looking at sales and marketing, and you're looking at sales management. One of the things that I did really well for two of my clients is I documented their entire network infrastructure, how to install a PC, how to deploy it. I mean, the whole SOP was there as far as like where the key was to the safe to go get the office disk, right? Like how everything. And so I had an engineer go out, and they had a PC install for one of my clients that I'd always taken care of. And when I did that, um, he went out there and he told everybody else in the organization, he's like, "Oh my God, we need to document every single client like Charles documented that one." Because it literally there was a separate one that had screenshots of like which drive letters and where things were, right? Like there's so many different settings where the printer drivers are, the copier, how it's set up, and the right drivers for that, and how to get it to, fax from the machines and stuff. There's so many intricate pieces. What I did for those two clients is I documented everything about them, right? My regret is I didn't do that for every single client.
Right.
Because those two clients, they probably had the most pieces of software and the most moving parts, and I was constantly forgetting to do something, so I'd have callbacks. So I fixed that with those two, but I didn't do it with all the others. And so if there's any advice, the one piece of advice I'd give you is document every single client. If you're going out there and you're doing a PC install, instead of picking up your phone and scrolling through your email, document it, take screenshots, upload it, and have it on their network share in your IT glue or wherever you want to put it, so that it's when you hire that engineer, they go out there and you share with them with that documentation, they're going to see that. They're going to want to do the same thing that you've done, right? So we kind of, if the neighbor plants flowers, we want to plant flowers, right? So if you, the business owner, do documentation, your engineers will see the value in that and they'll do it as well. So that to me is key, is having that documentation in place. Create that repository. I don't care if it's in Teams and you just have a channel for each of your clients and you put files in there. I don't care if you get like an IT glue, don't store passwords in Teams, obviously, but like do it smart, right? Like really build this out and think about, what would I do? And the other thing too is it was really hard to stop being that engineer, right? Like I'm old school MCSE. I cut my teeth on Novell, and like walking into that client to have a meeting and seeing a tech sitting in a chair working on a computer, what went on in my mind? It's funny because I know exactly where it was. I visualize it because I remember that moment, and I was like, what's he here doing? Like, is he going to screw something up? This is my network, right? This is my baby. Like, but what I found was that, Jason was the tech at the time, and I mean, he did a great job. He did exactly what he's supposed to do because I had set him up for success. Right. And that was the key. And that was a learning moment for me. And I'm like, okay, we got to get this done for every client across the board so that every client is set up exactly the same, and Rick, what we did is our engineers, we got together, and at the time we were much smaller. So there were fewer engineers, but we talked about where should the firewall live, right? The first three octets of the IP doesn't really matter, but it's that fourth octet, right? Like, is the firewall going to be at .1 or .254? Why and why not, right? Where's that wireless access point's going to live? Where are the printers going to live? Where should the PCs live? Where's the server? Where's the backup devices? So we really just lined that out as a group working together, all the engineers working together, collaborating on that. And by them having helped design how we're going to do it, what documentation we need to put in place. And we do that for vendors as well, right? Like if we're thinking about switching a vendor, we actually get the engineers to get together, go through the demo and see which one should we go with before we even look at the pricing of it. And by having them have buy-in, they are going to follow along and make sure that the documentation is done, the network, the devices are put on the right octets, right? Like they go through and the naming convention, it's used throughout every single network when we onboard a new client and or go in and rebuild a network. And so having those engineers be involved in those decision-making items and choosing vendors and starting out with deploying new software, they have buy-in and they want that to work. And they're going to do the documentation because they don't want to be the one that didn't do it and everybody else in the organization is, right? So that to me, that's one thing I did wrong was not documenting every client. What I feel I did right was having all the engineers collaborate, and we've standardized throughout all clients.
That's good. Turn the negative into a positive thing.
Hey, you got to, right?
Well, that's just great. I mean, again, as we're growing as MSPs, we learn these lessons, but it's always good. And this is one of the purposes of the show is to get ideas, tips, tricks on how we can better ourselves, better the business, cut down on some of the mistakes and the growing pains by learning from some who have experienced it, who've seen it, and take that good advice. So I do appreciate you coming on. I really want to thank you for your insights today. Now, we talked about a few things. Is there anything you think we didn't cover that you'd like to talk about?
No, I think that's it, man. Just make sure you guys as MSPs, I mean, it's scary when I see on these Facebook groups or, see it in the news where an MSP gets compromised and all their clients have ransomware. I mean, there's, an unfortunate guy in Memphis that had 2 racks of servers and it was offering cloud hosting. He was doing it on his own and every client got compromised and they took over his entire infrastructure and set ransomware off on every single client. And the guy's completely out of business, right? Like he had no backups, no way to recover from that. And so I just really want to encourage you to make sure that you're protecting yourself. You're making sure that your MSP is locked down to the best of your ability. And then one thing that we did is we got a third party to come in. It's not cheap, but we got a third party come in and do pen testing for us and see if they could get in. And, so we had to make some tweaks after that. And, the thing I will say, Rick, I'll leave you with this is the threat landscape continues to evolve and change. Your security stack is going to continue to change and evolve. Don't pick a security stack and get complacent with it and say, well, I'm done, right? Start looking at zero trust, looking back at some of the stuff. When I said we went full circle, I really mean we went full circle. So we started out in the days of the mainframes, with the dumb terminals, and we started out where Novell and BlackBerry had it right with zero trust. They literally didn't trust any applications, and the Novell, in order for you to get access to a folder, nobody had access to it. You had to grant permissions. Microsoft kind of changed that. And so I'd like for us all to go back and look at what Novell did and what they did right, which was the zero trust, and then go back to that for all of our clients, but mainly for us as MSPs.
I'm sorry. I guess I need a tech here because I'm having some difficulties here. But I do appreciate you, Charles. And I think, like I said, you've brought a lot of good insight to us. And I think it's something that, a lot of us will take. And I know me personally, I'm going to take a lot of it to heart and try to implement some of the things. Now, if anyone wanted to get in touch with you, Huck, I know you say you do some coaching, but if anyone to get in touch with you or have some questions for you, how would they do that?
They could, you can go check out MSSPplaybook.com. I've got a group there that our people can go in there and post questions, stuff like that. CharlesHenson.net is my speakers page. And then if they want to just shoot me an email, it's charles@nashvillecomputer.com. Okay. Pretty simple.
Well, thank you. We're going to have a link to in the show notes to your book. It's available on Amazon, correct?
It is. Yep.
Okay. So we'll have a link to the show notes, and we'll also put your contact information there.
All right.
Charles, again, I want to thank you so much. I appreciate the time here. Appreciate the insights and the good information. For everyone else, you can watch this video podcast on youtube.com/MSP Unplugged. Make sure to like and subscribe. We're also going to be on this episode will be on our podcast streamers in about a week's time, so that you can catch those on your favorite podcasts as Amazon Music, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Everyone, I want to thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time on MSP Unplugged.
Thanks, Rick.